Oh man, let me tell you about the day I met Sprout and Blossom, these two tiny beavers who completely stole my heart. It all started when I was working at the wildlife sanctuary, just another day checking on the animals when Blossom showed up. She was this little ball of fur, barely bigger than my hand, with these huge, nervous eyes that made me want to hug her and tell her everything was going to be all right. She'd come from a place where developers had torn down every tree for a housing project, leaving her family with nowhere to go. I don't know what happened to the rest of them, but Blossom was alone, scared, and way too shy for her own good. I could tell she was hurting, missing her family, something fierce. I spent days just sitting by her enclosure, talking to her in this soft voice, hoping she'd relax. She'd nibble on some willow branches I brought her, but any little sound, a door creaking, a bird chirping, would send her scurrying back to her nest. It was tough to watch. Beavers are supposed to be social, you know? They thrive with others, building dams, making those funny little noises. But Blossom didn't have anyone, and it was breaking my heart. So I made it my mission to make her feel safe, spending hours with her, watching her take tiny steps to explore her pool. Still, I could see she was lonely, and I wasn't sure how to fix that. Then, out of nowhere, Sprout entered the picture. I got a call from some folks clearing land a few hours away. They'd used dynamite to blast through a forest, way too close to a beaver lodge. The next day, they found this little kit sitting in the wreckage, all by himself. No family, no nothing. When they brought him to the sanctuary, I couldn't believe it. Sprout was like a little firecracker, waddling around with this big, bold energy, like he was ready to take on the world. We still don't know if Sprout's a boy or a girl, but it didn't matter. This beaver was all personality, and I had a gut feeling he was exactly what Blossom needed. The first time I put them together, I was nervous. Blossom was so timid, and Sprout was, well, Sprout. He marched right up to her, and before I knew it, they were tussling like little sumo wrestlers. It was the cutest thing. Sprout pushing, Blossom pushing back, and then Sprout flopping over like, "All right, you win." I laughed so hard I almost cried. For the first time, I saw Blossom come alive, her eyes sparkling with something like joy. But it wasn't all perfect right away. Sprout's energy could be a lot for Blossom, and sometimes she'd retreat to a corner, overwhelmed. So I'd sit with them, offering extra branches or a quiet spot for her to chill. Little by little, she started to trust Sprout, especially when he'd groom her, nibbling her fur in this gentle way that made my heart melt. Watching them bond was like watching magic happen. They'd chase each other around, making these adorable, squeaky, grumbly noises that had everyone at the sanctuary grinning. They'd drag sticks together, like they were practicing for the dams they'd build one day. But I couldn't help worrying about their future. They'd both lost their families, and beavers need to learn a ton. How to build a lodge, store food, survive winters. I wasn't sure we could teach them everything they needed. So I brought in Chulip, this older beaver we had at the sanctuary. She's a bit of a grump, but she's got this wise big sister vibe. I hoped she'd show them the ropes, but I was nervous. What if she didn't like them? When I introduced them, Chulip gave Sprout this look like, "Who do you think you are, kid?" Sprout, of course, didn't care and waddled right up to her. I thought it might go south, but then Blossom did something amazing. She made one of her quiet little squeaks, and Chulip's whole demeanor softened. It was like she decided, fine, I'll look out for these two. Over the next few weeks, I watched Chulip teach them how to strip bark like pros and pack mud just right. But the real test was still coming. These kits were supposed to be released into the wild after 2 years, and the thought of letting them go made my stomach twist. They were so small, so vulnerable. What if they couldn't hack it out there? So I poured everything into preparing them. We set up bigger pools, gave them more branches and mud to practice with. Sprout and Blossom dove right in, building these messy but adorable little dams. Sprout would charge ahead, dragging sticks twice his size, while Blossom was more careful, nudging everything into place. They balanced each other perfectly, but I still worried. The wild's no joke. Predators, harsh winters, and don't get me started on humans messing things up. I spent nights researching, calling experts, trying to find the perfect spot for their release. A river with clean water, lots of trees, and no developers in sight. As their second year approached, I could see how strong they'd gotten. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Chulip had taught them well, and their instincts were kicking in. They'd chew through branches like it was nothing, their dams getting sturdier every day. But saying goodbye was going to be brutal. I'd fallen in love with them. Sprout's goofy antics, Blossom's quiet strength, even Chulip's grumpy side-eye. So I focused on the plan, double-checking every detail to make sure they'd be safe. The release day came, and I was a wreck. We took them to this beautiful river, the kind of place beavers dream of. Sprout splashed right in, typical Sprout, but Blossom hesitated, looking back at me. My throat got tight, but I nodded at her like, "You got this." She followed Sprout, and I watched their little tails bob in the water as they swam off together. I knew they'd be okay. They had each other, and they had Chulip's lessons. Still, letting go was the hardest thing I've ever done. Thank you for watching. If you like the story, feel free to comment, like, and subscribe. See you in the next video.